Thanks for tuning in to Werme's Wisdom, where we talk old school UFC and MMA current events. I'm James Werme, UFC executive, announcer, and producer of over 40 events worldwide during the SEG and Zuffa years. Werme's Wisdom, here on the Todd Atkins MMA Podcast Network.
All right, this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with James Werme. Always one of my favorite guests on the show. I always look forward to doing shows with James because he's just always got great insights. I always feel privileged to hear a lot of this stuff. James was he's introduced himself to the community a lot at this point, but he was executive with the UFC for how many years of Zuffa?
7 years. I was there from
Yeah,
1995 to 2002. I was with SEG, and then I did 1 year with Zuffa after they purchased the show. And I was the only employee that moved with the show from New York to Las Vegas.
yeah. So
And
James
it's a
obviously
pleasure,
has,
pleasure to be back. Nice to see
yeah,
you, and always a pleasure to be here.
James is a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, I highly encourage everyone that watches these shows to especially watch the episodes with him. And what we're gonna kind of discuss today is this Rousey Carano thing that kind of came out of left field. I don't think anyone was expecting it. Netflix first foray into MMA. My understanding is that there won't be any boxing on the show. It'll be an MMA event. I just kind of want to get your take. What do you think of this?
I mean, it's huge. I think it's huge. And you know it's huge because everyone's talking about it and everyone has an opinion about it. And people are passionate about it either way. So, on a very basic level, you've got the biggest star that women's MMA has ever produced. And you've really got the first star that women's MMA ever produced. So, that's huge from a promotion standpoint, hype standpoint, excitement, interest, anticipation, all that stuff standpoint. I think it's huge. I think it's cool. Which helps everyone to kind of overlook the fact that, both women are around 40 years old. Both of them left the sport a long time ago, kind of on a downward trajectory. And both of them have their own, issues, whether it's Ronda and, concussion and health. And Gina, obviously, Gina's much heavier than she was. So they've got their challenges, but I think from a promotional standpoint, from making a fight that at least everyone is curious about and interested in tuning in and checking out. And you can't get two bigger names in women's MMA than Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. I mean, that's a fact. So I think that alone is going to attract a lot of eyeballs to Netflix.
I do think there's some people out there that are kind of, oh, they're older. That this would have been great 15 years ago, 12 years ago. But I think had Dana made this move for the White House, those same people would be saying, "Oh, what a move! This is a
Yeah,
huge fight to put on the White House." It would
listen,
have been a different reaction.
anytime you get a fight that causes excitement and interest, that's a cool thing and that's a good thing. So yeah, you're going to have naysayers and sour grapes here and there, but yeah, I mean, as long as both women can you know qualify under whatever standards or I guess it's California State Athletic Commission, but it's no different than the fights we're seeing now that are the biggest draws, which is Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, and things of that nature, which are not purist style sports driven matches. It's more about what's the public going to dig and what are people going to get excited about and talk about and tune in for. So I think they've accomplished that for sure.
Yeah, and even the Anthony Joshua fight, what I noticed, like, because I'm on TikTok and some of these other social platforms, is like women discovered Anthony Joshua overnight, because he's kind of handsome, muscular. So obviously it got attention of all kind of random people
Yeah, I mean,
because
and
it was on Netflix.
right,
Had it not
exactly.
been,
That's
that wouldn't have happened.
right. The Netflix factor is also huge because everybody's got it. So you can kind of classify it as free television. There's no paywall, there's no barrier to entry. There's certainly not a 50, 75, $100 pay-per-view charge, which would turn off a lot of people. But oh, that fight's on Netflix. I got Netflix. Come on over. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens. The curiosity factor is huge, and the platform is huge.
Right.
I think that's been so
It's
important
almost
to,
like a cable channel
yeah, yeah.
at
I
this
think
point.
most people would we consider it a free television, right? We don't even think about a $10 monthly subscription is a big deal, and cable TV, people don't even really think about that as, pay stuff. So to have that platform is really such an advantage to, I guess, MVP is what we're talking about, and I'm sure we
Right.
want to get into that as well. But yeah, it makes perfect sense, and I think it's a perfect match.
And I think one thing that it's going to create, which maybe some people will have a hard time wrapping their head around, maybe not, is that this is probably going to be the most viewed American MMA event by a large margin. I wonder what the most viewed UFC event was. It had to have been on pay-per-view. They weren't putting the heavy hitter fights on free TV. I know Dana had said, like, I don't know if that's true or not, but like Dan from Tap Out told me that Dana told him like 14 million people were watching the Tough finale at the time it was happening. They'll
Uh-huh.
crush that number easily.
Yeah, I mean, just because of, again, the Netflix platform is what, 300 million? I mean,
I don't know how many in the US, but it's a lot, you
yeah, I
know?
mean, is it going to be overseas? I mean, I would assume that they
Yeah,
broadcast
yeah,
this
but I'm
everywhere.
just talking about US.
Here,
They'll
yeah. I
smash
mean,
14 million with no problem.
yeah, just because the universe is that big,
Yeah,
they just have to get, and again, it's such a different deal than being on pay-per-view where people have to go out of their way. They have to go into their pocket, versus hitting a button on the remote control and being on Netflix.
yeah.
It's just so much easier and so much, yeah, I mean, there's no barrier to entry with something on Netflix. So anyone across the spectrum of, old school, new school, male, female, fight fan, non-fight fan, everyone knows Ronda. Ronda transcended. Ronda broke through. Ronda was famous beyond mixed martial arts, beyond the UFC. So, her alone would have been a coup, I think. But to have Gina really adds a cool nostalgia factor for a lot of the old school hardcores like us. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, and the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to see that.
Plus, Gina was on Mandalorian, which was a huge hit show on Disney, even though she got pulled because she
Yeah,
gave her some opinions. But,
as well,
you
as
know,
well. Yeah, I
so
don't
she's
know that.
got an audience from that.
Right. Yeah, she has the fight audience, she has the entertainment and acting audience for sure. And she's in, she was in big stuff. Ronda was in big stuff too. So yeah, you got like legitimate stars who in their day were legitimate badass fighters. And if they're up for it, why not? Right. And that's again, that's the climate is more about, you know, curiosity, excitement, promotion, who do people want to see versus, who's number one versus who's number two, who's number five versus who's number six. So, you want to talk about where sport and spectacle blur, that gray area between sport and spectacle. I think this is a perfect example because you got two, they were legit badasses in their day. We're a long way from their day, but boy, that's a fight I'd like to see. It's remember when we finally got Mayweather and Pacquiao? It was years later, and I don't mean to equate the two, because those guys were obviously still very competitive and still fighting. But you were able to put aside the fact that, hey, maybe this fight should have happened 5 years ago, and just get excited about, hey, the fight's happening. So, I kind of think about it that way.
Plus, like I was saying, when I see these random accounts that aren't sports accounts, that are just regular people, especially females, finally discovering Anthony Joshua, they were just sitting on Netflix when it came on, and their background was Paul versus Joshua because that's what Netflix did, the
Hmm.
whole background, and they just
Hmm.
clicked on it.
Yep, why not?
They didn't even know who Anthony Joshua was. They just clicked on it, and that's going to happen on this too because they're probably going to make the whole background Rousey versus Carano,
Oh, for
Jake
sure.
Paul promotions, and people are just going to click on it just to see. They
Yep.
might, even if they intend to tune away, they're going to click on it. you
Yep.
know, and
And if
it's going to
Jake
be a huge number of viewership. The viewership's going to be through the roof.
definitely, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. I mean, I can't think of a reason why it doesn't do huge numbers. And we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of presentation it is, right? How many fights, what kind of card, how's the arena look? What are the entertainment factors
The
involved? This
boxing
is
shows Paul did look really good on
They look
TV.
slick, they look hot. There's a lot of music and lighting and components within the ring and the walkway to really up the entertainment factor. That's another thing. We got sport and spectacle, that gray area. And personally, I love that. I always wanted the UFC to have the spectacle of the WWE combined with the sport and intensity of a heavyweight boxing championship fight. So I think you can combine the two. I think it's more fun to watch when you combine the two. So yeah, I would assume the presentation will be fantastic. Um, we'll see. We'll see if this is a one-off. We'll see if this is their entree into MMA. We'll see who else is on the card, right? That's the other thing is there's a lot of, like you said, it came out of left field, although they had that promo ready. So there's a bunch of people that knew this was happening and are good at keeping a secret. So that's tough in this day and age. So congratulations to them on that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes, beyond that night.
Yeah, that's the second thing I was going to get to with you. Do you think they need maybe one or two more big swings on the card or no? Not from a
Need,
viewership standpoint, I don't
yeah,
think so, but from a we are here standpoint, do
right.
they
I
need to
guess
send that message or do you think no?
I guess viewership, no, I agree with you on that. But if you're trying to establish yourself as a new MMA promotion organization, you're going to have a schedule. You're going to do more shows. Then I think you've got to either fill it out with, young, hungry talent or throw a couple old faves on there. Why not? I'm sure there's plenty of people that have been cut from the UFC or PFL or the old Bellator crew. Now there's a community out there, and we have a 30-year history of MMA. So we've got old timers that you could bring. We got legends. Maybe this is a legends thing, or maybe it's a young and hungry up and comers kind of
Ngannou, I
thing.
think, is available. I think his PFL contract's over.
I would save him for fight number two, and I'd promo that. I'd promo that on fight number one.
Well,
But
in a
there's
way, I
many.
would put him on this because people can see him smash somebody. The casual viewer who doesn't know who he is, and then they can go with him on the second one.
I guess, but like you said, if it's not going to affect viewership, then I wouldn't go crazy on the purse. But
Right. He
if,
would be
if
a
but
big, yeah.
you would use that first fight obviously to promote your second fight, and if you can go from Ronda Gina, event number one to Ngannou versus really whomever, kind of doesn't matter. He's been out of it so long. People just want to see his return. That's why I would play that if I was willing to spend the dough to get him. And they might be willing to spend the dough to get him because they could probably afford it.
Yeah, I doubt Ronda was cheap, and I doubt Gina was cheap.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And Netflix is going to drive major sponsorship dollars. I mean, I would assume. So yeah, very, very curious to see if this is MVP's entree into MMA or this is just kind of an offshoot of Jake Paul's stuff. He's hurt, he's gonna be out for a while, obviously. I assume he'll come back. Why not do this in the meantime? And maybe that's what his angle is, just super fights and super events and bringing back people that people want to see, whether they're older or new, or it doesn't really matter. It kind of doesn't matter.
And Amanda Serrano has been a staple of Paul's boxing shows. Do you think they could get her for this? She has had three MMA fights already.
She has had three MMA fights, and I believe she's still within a contract with the PFL that she signed in like 2023, that she never fought under.
But there has to be a time constraint on that, don't you think?
I don't know the details. Who knows? But to me, she's had such success in the last couple of years boxing, and she sold out Madison Square Garden, and she's the top female boxer in the world for a couple of years now, and she's making major dollars. So I don't know that it makes a ton of sense for her to jeopardize that legacy that she
Hmm.
has built and established in the last couple of years. We know MMA. You can come out and get caught fast and look like shit. And it's like, oh, that person's not that tough. So I don't know
Mm.
if I was her management, I don't know that I would advise doing that. And I don't know that they could match what she's making in the boxing ring, right? Um, so I'd put her ringside and I would interview her. Maybe I'd throw her in the booth for a fight or two, get her expertise because she's done both and she's a unique talent. But if I was her management, I wouldn't go anywhere near MMA.
Another one I wanted to get to. Obviously, we think this is going to be the biggest viewed show in the U.S. history. What would that mean for MVP going forward in a foray like this? Would it mean this doesn't make it a one-off, or would it not matter? Maybe.
I mean, it means they're a player in the game. Us, whether they plan to move forward with additional events or not, they're a player because everyone's talking about their show. And I don't think you can go back the history of MMA. You know this probably better than I. I can't think of any promotion that has generated as much buzz and excitement in their first show than this one. They just have the components in today's day and age to have Jake Paul, Netflix, Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano. I mean, you got four aces right there. So what a splash. And they're an immediate player. So I think it'll really be up to them. And who knows if they have stuff scheduled we don't know about, or who knows if they're going to play it by ear. And MVP and Netflix will get together, the day after and say, hey, these were the numbers. Should we do this again? Um, but I mean, I'm sure the gate's going to be significant, and they're doing it in they're doing it in a big, brand new arena the way they just had the NBA All-Star game. So, high profile venue, high profile platform, high profile main event, high profile promoter. They got a lot going for them before they've done anything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how many people they can get in there to help the look, even if they have to bring some people in.
I mean, I think they'll do fine. I think people will be interested enough to go. And what is Jake drawing for the Tyson and the Joshua fight? I mean, they're
Oh
they're
yeah,
doing bigger. They're
there were
doing
big
bigger rings.
crowds there, at least on the TV. It looked like there was a lot of people. Yeah.
And what was Ronda drawing back in her day?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know
plenty.
Gina's a little different because Gina was early. We forget how long ago Gina was. Um, but Gina fought on CBS. Gina was probably the first MMA female star to fight on free television.
Hmm.
So again, both these
She was
guys
the
have cut
first
the
female star of MMA.
yeah, for sure. For
Mhm.
sure. So and I mean, there's one thing MVP, if there's one thing Jake Paul is good at, it's promotion and it's going viral and hype. So it's just the beginning of that. We're gonna see what the fight's in May. So we're gonna see a good 3 months of all that. Um, so yeah, I expect a
Uh,
lot of buzz.
actually, I think let me make sure about that because I'm going to
Yeah,
see.
it's mid-May, yeah, something like that.
Uh, May 16th, yeah, and then the
Yeah.
UFC White House is in June, so that's another thing we can talk about. What do you think about them getting a date before the White House show?
Well, that's what I would do. Yeah, I mean, I think this fight works whenever you do it. I think it's kind of an FU, and we're here. You gotta respect us, kind of date thing. I'm sure a lot of the date selection had to do with Ronda and Gina and how long they think they need to get ready. Because it really doesn't matter when you do the big fight. Obviously Netflix is going to want to schedule it. Maybe they'll schedule it around other things that they're launching or a new series or who knows. I'm sure there'll be a lot of promotional tie-in. Anytime you get that many eyeballs on a property, Netflix is going to try to use that to their advantage. So, so yeah, I mean, the timing, that maybe they're trying to steal the UFC's thunder, or maybe that date just was when the women wanted to do it, or when it worked out best for Netflix and all the partners. So, I don't know that it's such a big deal that it's before the White House event, although the UFC might think it's a big deal that it's before the White House event. Well, I tell you what, with regard to the White House event, what it puts pressure on the UFC to like equal or better, right? So if the Ronda Gina show is a phenomenal success, the UFC's got some pressure on them that maybe they haven't felt in about 10 years.
I don't know that UC White House can make up on the viewership just because of the amount of people that have Netflix versus the amount that have Paramount. It's not even close.
Well, I'd agree with that. And I would say that the White House is a cool stage and a cool venue. And but I don't know if that makes people tune in, because these days you're going to see stuff streaming, you're going to see videos, you're going to see highlights pretty instantaneously. So if your only curiosity is, oh, I wonder what the White House lawn looks like with the octagon on it, you're going to see that while they're building it, during the prelims. There'll be no shortage of stuff online to see that, if that's your curiosity. I think for the UFC, you've got to be a real MMA fan. You got to be a UFC fan. The White House isn't going to draw a ton more viewership, I don't think. It's cachet and it's profile, but it's not. I don't know if it's a cool factor. It's more of a curiosity. Versus,
Netflix 325 million, Paramount 79.
and the UFC did what, five so far
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the.
On their biggest show, the lead Paramount, they did
Yeah,
just over 4.
yeah.
I don't see them making up 60 million,
not because no.
Netflix might pull that many just from just random people watching
Oh yeah, I don't even
globally.
know how to predict. I don't when your universe is that big, I
It's
don't
like
even know how
Miguel
to
told me about
predict.
China. There's so many people when Zhang Weili was fighting, God, who it was she was fighting for the title. Miguel was like, only a fraction of the people need to watch it to have a massive number. Same with
Mm,
Netflix.
mm,
Only a fraction of the people globally need to watch it, and it would still be a huge number.
yeah, I mean, you get 1%, you got 3 million people. You
Yeah,
get 2%, you're at six. You get three,
yeah.
suddenly you're at 10. I mean, yeah, the numbers can
Tiny
grow.
fractions.
Yeah, yeah. No, with that kind of universe, the potential is incredible. And yeah, I just, I think the White House thing is cool, but I don't think it drives viewership. At the end of the day, the card, the main event is going to drive viewership. I think it's a curiosity. I think people will be interested to see what the octagon looks like in front of the White House, but I don't know that I'm going out of my way, because I know I'm going to see that on my social media feeds. If that's my only curiosity, I just have to wait until 10 minutes after the show starts and the people in the stands start to post stuff. Um, so yeah, versus the Netflix MVP promotion, which is, it's easy to watch, and I can flip away from it. So we'll see how that shakes down viewership wise.
Now, I want to kind of talk about. Well, let me ask you this before I get into some of the other topics. If it's a big success, you're a TV guy. Well, let me ask this: what would you, as a TV guy, because you were, deem a big success?
If I'm whom? If I'm Netflix?
If you're, or even if you're the guy who produced it, and you know how many viewers. So you have 325 million viewers globally. To
Mhm.
you, based on this number, what to you would be a big success for you personally?
Whew. I mean, the first thing I think about is the building. I want to see a sold out building. I want that room jacked. I want that room fired up, and a ball of energy. So that's my first barometer is always the live crowd, and are people pumped in the room. From a it's tough to say, because I don't know. I would say to myself, I would say like, when Netflix launches a new series, or something like that. I wonder what they do. And I guess that would probably be the bar to look at. Or you could just look at Jake's fights on Netflix and use that as a bar and say, okay, well, Tyson did this, Joshua did this, so we expect to do this, just because we think we're hitting the
Let's see what
same
it was.
nerves. We're hitting the same nerve with that, which is uh, sports fans, fight fans, curiosity, people that know the participants from outside the fight world, right? I think Ronda, we forget how big a star Ronda was huge. Ronda was the face of the UFC. Ronda was all over TV and movies, and you can't discount that. And I think she also inspired a lot of women. And you're going to get potentially a very large female audience, right? So now you're going beyond the MMA fan, beyond the UFC fan, into, little girls that look up to these people and haven't been able to see them or hear from them in years and can't wait and are just excited that they're back. That's the thing. I think the excitement that they're back and they're going to do this kind of causes everyone to overlook the reality of the situation, which is, hey, they're both kind of over the hill. They're both headed in the wrong direction when they got out. They both been on the bench for, I don't know, 10, 15. In Gina's case, she hasn't fought in almost like 20 years, right? So, once a fighter, always a fighter. And I'm going to assume that they're both going to take it very seriously. So I'm also assuming that they're both cashing in big time. So, I think a lot of factors, but all pointing in the direction of an exciting evening. I'm going to check it out. I'm excited to check it out.
It says here Joshua Paul did 33 million global.
33 million, so 10%, a little bit better than 10%. I mean,
Maybe this
that's
show comes under that. Maybe I mean Joshua's a huge name,
he
in
is.
boxing,
Yeah,
especially in the
that's true.
UK.
Yep, for sure.
Let's see what
Overseas.
Tyson versus Paul did. I'm sure it was more. I think it was like 80, if I remember correctly.
Wow. I mean, Mike, nobody compares to Mike Tyson, right? Um, but I mean, even if they go out and say they do 5%,
105 million.
wow. I mean, imagine what you can charge for sponsorships when you're expecting 100. I mean, we're talking about Super Bowl level viewership, which is crazy. That's crazy. And
So if
and
they
they
got
could do this.
33, I would think this show might be able to get, I don't know, 15?
I I was going to say 10 to 15 easy. I think beyond 15 would be maybe bigger than that. I think 10 is very achievable because you're talking about 3.5% of the universe.
Yeah. 50, anything above like 15 would be, you'd be through the ecstatic, I think.
I mean, I think the fact that you can reach anytime these days with the saturation of television and streaming and all that stuff, anytime you're reaching millions of people in one night, that is a huge victory, man. And if they can go out in their inaugural event and do 8, 10, 12, 15 million eyeballs, holy shit. I mean, you'll see another event 3 months later.
What I'm trying to see, I'm basing it more on US because, these are
Mhm.
both American fighters. What it says here for Joshua Paul,
What's the US universe for Netflix? What's the US subscription?
I
You
think
got like
it's
150? It's probably going to be half of the worldwide, right? I don't know
Netflix
if I might be high.
US subscriber. US subscribers is 66.7 million.
Oh, okay, so that's lower than I thought. Okay, so
Paramount.
they do 10% of that. It's 6.5. So they do 20% to break 10.
Paramount US subscribers.
How can Netflix be smaller than Paramount? Paramount's like
No,
80.
Paramount US subscribers
Oh,
figure. Well, specific detail was.
it's probably like 20, 25, 30. It can't be that much if it's total 70.
Look at it this way: Netflix US subscription is 66 million. Paramount's global is 79.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
say a
so
U.S. number, at least not right here.
so tops, it's probably like half. Call it 30 or 40. But yeah, I mean, this is, and that is a perfect illustration of how the platform is going to drive this thing for MVP and for Netflix. Just
So it's
because
going to be hard for the UFC to eclipse. Although I do think of the 79 million global that Paramount has, I wonder how many would watch globally just because it's at the White House. I wonder. But in the U.S., I think it would be really hard pressed to eclipse
I don't
Netflix.
see the
Super
White
hard.
House. Yeah, I don't see the White House thing as such an increase in viewership. I see it as a curiosity and a cool stage. But ultimately, if people are watching the UFC, it's because of who's on the card and who the main event's going to be. And if it's Connor, that's different. Obviously, he moves the needle like nobody. Um, but the cachet of the White House is just that. It's cachet. I don't think it drives a lot of viewership, frankly. I mean, I could be wrong.
You need to
We'll
have
see.
half of your subscribers watch it, to maybe eclipse the viewership of what this is going to get in the US.
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna
Globally,
happen.
you need to have half of your subscribers watch it globally for
Yeah,
Paramount
yeah.
to
Well,
eclipse what this fight will get in the US for
and
Carano
this
Rousey.
this this kind of circles us back to something we talked about before the UFC did their TV deal, which is Netflix versus ESPN versus Paramount versus Peacock, whatever you want to do.
Mm.
But going with Paramount, they're making $1 billion a year, and that's fantastic for everyone involved. But they kind of handcuff themselves a little bit because it's a major streaming um, service, but it's not the biggest. It doesn't have the biggest reach internationally by far. I don't believe it's strong internationally at all. So, that's a perfect situation where they took the bag of cash, and they're willing to maybe take a hit on growth and viewership versus a Netflix thing, which must have been less money, but would have been an easier opportunity to continue to grow the sport just because of the platform and the size and distribution of that platform. So I'm just thinking about this for the first time, but here I am thinking that they got $1 billion a year, but maybe Paramount wasn't the best place to end up.
What I'm looking at is how many ESPN Plus subscribers are there, where
Mm,
UFC was before,
mhm,
globally. It doesn't, well, it only looks like they got a US number.
mhm,
And the US number might be comparable to Paramount, like 24 million, which I
mhm,
think, given how many Paramount has globally,
mhm.
might be similar.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they're really, like I said, if they'd be hard pressed to do anything better than what they did on ESPN Plus for this White House show.
Yeah, I think, and again, we're just talking about this now, but I think the choice of Paramount was more about growth of Paramount than growth
Right.
of the UFC. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
it's
Paramount has a subscriber expectation that I would assume is pretty big.
right, right. And the UFC chose not to go with a suitor that was going to put them in front of the maximum amount of households and eyeballs. Obviously the front end money has to do with that decision. And I don't know the nuts and
Yeah.
bolts of that decision. But
Yeah.
but it seems that in the UFC's choice of Paramount over, say, a Netflix, and we're assuming for this conversation that Netflix was a player and a finalist and all that. But the UFC's decision to go with Paramount wasn't about growth. It was about cashing in.
TKO.
It,
Yeah, TKO wanted the cash
yeah,
over the eyeballs.
because it's Netflix 300, Paramount 70. So if our priority is to grow the sport from a distribution standpoint, then this was not the correct partner. If our priority was to get as much as we could for the TV rights, keep the share price going up, keep the stockholders happy, well, then they made the right decision, right? That's the thing. We talk about how this is going to shake down, and this is really the first time I'm kind of thinking about it in these terms now that we're breaking down the numbers.
How
But
much of
I
that
don't,
7 billion is guaranteed? Do you think all of it?
oh, yeah, got to be all of it. Yeah. Yeah.
There wouldn't be some sort of subscriber limit baked
No
into
way.
that.
I mean,
No
maybe
way.
that
Okay.
was maybe that and maybe at some point that was a part of the conversation, but I don't see the UFC signing a deal that it requires them to drive a certain amount of traffic or a guarantee subscription increase. I don't think they would
Because
get
if
into
I'm
that type of
Paramount, I
deal.
would. I'd say, yeah, we'll give you 7 billion the first year, and if you hit this mark, we'll give you 7 billion again next year, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't,
No, it was
yeah,
7 billion total is what it was.
yeah,
So we'll
a
give you.
billion a year.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
so if you
I
hit
don't
that
know.
benchmark, we'll do it again next year. If you hit this I would if I was Paramount,
Mhm.
but UFC
Yeah,
or TKO
no.
was probably like, no, you're just giving us what we want, and that's it.
Yeah. You
Okay.
know, the only thing I can say, just thinking out loud, since you say that, is I would say that if there are if there are components to the deal like that, it's probably in return for such a long-term deal. 7 years is a long time. A 7-year deal for TV rights, pretty long. I don't know what the ESPN one was. I don't know what the Spike one was. I don't know what the Fox one was. I don't think there was 7 years. So this obviously a commitment from Paramount that they're in it for the long haul. Everyone's in it for the long haul. But yeah, I think I think we're seeing the discrepancy. I think we're seeing the difference between distribution driven and revenue, guarantee revenue driven decision making, where we have the
Because it's
UFC.
interesting to think about. I think Paramount saying, yeah, we're spending this money because we want to get up to where Netflix is at.
Hmm.
And if we're not growing at any rate that we thought we would, they have to be pretty pissed off.
Well, all deals like this are a bit of a crapshoot and a
Yeah.
gamble. You don't know what's going to happen. Like we said, every time we talk about this might work out great for all parties. It might not. You don't know that at the beginning, but you must still sign the deal. And TKO, UFC doesn't give a shit. They're going to do their best. Obviously, they want to please their partner and make good for them on the deal and set up their next deal. I don't for a second mean to say that the UFC is going to try to rest on their laurels because, obviously they're in it for the long haul too. But, it's clearly a financially driven decision versus a distribution and growth decision. And I think we're seeing the flip side of that with the Jake Paul stuff, where they're just getting it in front of as many people as possible. And we're going to drive revenues through the gate and through sponsorships and through, ancillary stuff and not necessarily the upfront rights deal.
Yeah, because Netflix saying we already have a shitload of subscribers. So we can just,
We
you
just
know,
need to promote it
yeah,
and sell
different approach.
sell sponsorships.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine walking in. It's like the NFL walking in and say, "Okay, who wants a Super Bowl commercial? How much you got?" We're
Yeah.
expecting 8 to 10 million eyeballs on this. Who's got their checkbook?
Now, kind of pivoting into, a lot has been said about Zuffa boxing. This is kind of the new topic to discuss, and we've kind of now we're starting to get a little feedback, from some of the other players involved. And you've got Dana kind of giving his feedback to them. As a new, you obviously know this. You were with Zuffa and SEG, um, and especially when we come to the Zuffa part of it, they really didn't. There were some competitors your first year. I mean, there were some other ones that were Strike Force was around, Pride was around, but Pride was in Japan. This is all new for Zuffa Boxing because they're the small one. These other
Mm,
shows make them look like crap at this point.
yeah. Just to correct the historical record. So when we start in the early 90s, the only real competition is Extreme Battlecade, Extreme.
Right.
But it's a bit of a gift to call them competition because in their entire history, they only did 4 shows. We used to do 5 a year, and I think their life was only 2 or 3 years. So, anyways, and then in the late 90s, you're right. Pride came along as a heavy competitor overseas, and Strikeforce was later. That was maybe into the 2000s. But you're absolutely right. Here you have uh, Dana, Zuffa, UFC, whatever you want to call it, who's used to being the big kid on the block, and the bully pushing everyone around. And now they are the small startup organization. And that's a word I have not heard used a lot when describing Zuffa boxing, but it is a startup. Um, so yeah, they're smaller. I mean, again, they're ahead of the game because they have the deal with Paramount, and what a gift that is. But if you just look at the face value of the shows, they're doing it at the Apex. There's a couple hundred people there. They're doing it with relative unknowns on the card. Um, so yeah, this is a totally different world, and I can see. I think it's easy to sense based on Dana's recent comments. It's easy to see his initial frustration, and whether that continues, we'll see. But he got personal and he got insulted real fast, and I don't know that his reaction is appropriate when he's, trying to build something new and get people to come along and name calling, I don't know, name calling, is that ever good? Um, Although, President of the United States does pretty well with it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a totally new, obviously, world for them. I wonder if they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah, the thing for me is, I think Eddie Hearn had some valid points, when he's saying, is this vision just to make your own little world? You're saying, I don't have any vision. What is your vision? You're taking what you've always done and you're just cut and pasting it into this. You're cut and pasting it in Power Slap. It's not a new vision. This is something you've already done.
Yeah.
You're just cut and paste, Power Slap. It's a UFC presentation. It's just some people slapping each other. Zuffa boxing. It's UFC presentation, just a boxing. It's the same thing. So
I
is that
think,
really vision or is that not having any vision?
hmm, good question. I think you could see it both ways because on one hand, it's like, hey, we built a better mousetrap. On the other hand, it's, dude, you're doing the same shit you've been doing for 2 decades. I
Right.
think I think the biggest thing that maybe Zuffa Boxing and Dana are encountering that they're not used to and maybe not ready for is competition, right? The UFC was able to swallow up all the competition and throw their weight around, be the bully, be the big dog, bark the loudest, buy up everybody, collect and hold the talent. Boxing is the opposite. I mean, boxing is like the perfect example of sports free agency there is. I mean, and the numbers, that's the other thing is boxers, big time boxers are used to making a lot of dough. So, and Zuffa boxing, if they're under the UFC model, do not want to pay a lot of dough, at least at the beginning and at least until there's a guaranteed return. So yeah, I don't know why Dana came out the way he did with it. I understand why they're doing it. And like I said, I remember those guys talking about this being a dream of theirs, you know, 20 years ago, 25
Yeah.
years ago.
Hmm.
But to come out to be the new kid on the block in a smaller organization and be arrogant about it, I think is not a good look. I don't think it, but it's his look, right? So it's on brand, but it doesn't match. The UFC was always able to back up his brash personality. Zuffa boxing cannot. Maybe it will someday, but right now it cannot. Um, so I think he's kind of going about this the wrong way, and he's leaving himself wide open to people like Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya, who, say what you want about those guys, but they understand boxing. They know boxing. They certainly know promotion of boxing, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So to be taking shots at those guys, I don't think it's a great look. And like I said, maybe he's compensating for frustration or whatever. But Zuffa Boxing is a startup, and to paint it or try to portray it as anything other than that is not appropriate. It's not accurate. And you know what? You don't have to come out and be an asshole. You don't have to make enemies. You can do stuff and you can be part of that world without pissing everybody off. Because you know what? In boxing, we know one thing's for sure. It's sooner or later those promoters need to work with each other. And I know that's not the goal or design of Zuffa boxing, but it was not their goal or design to work with any of the sanctioning bodies. And I think they're going to have to for the Opataya, the that fight. So I mean,
Right.
again, they're still making their way and learning, uh, learning to crawl. You're going to crawl before you can walk, right? You don't just jump into something like big time boxing. It's tough to make a splash unless, like we've talked about, you're willing to just go out and buy talent. Um, but I don't know that that's part of their goal or vision either. Even though the financial backing they have, they could certainly do that, I assume, if they wanted to.
But they're in a different position here because these bigger promoters that are already successful in this space are in a position to point out their flaws that the other MMA promotions they were up against were not in a position to do because they
Hmm.
were the big dog on the block. Even
Right.
if I'm a promoter and my show's not as successful in MMA and I say, oh, look at your show, all the fighters are going to say, yeah, but you don't pay what they're paying or you don't have the platform they have.
Hmm.
As to where Hearn and Oscar are above them, and they can say, "Is this what you guys really want to do? You all want to be put in generic gloves and shorts and not be able to? Is this really the dream that you guys have for yourself as boxers to not
Yeah.
be able to maximize
The
your brand?"
yeah.
They're in
There's
a
a lot
position
of
to say, "Look, our guys are able to do that. These guys are putting you in a position where you cannot do that."
right, right. The blood, sweat, and tears that you've gone through to get here. You're never
Right.
going to you're never going to capitalize on that with them like you would with us. And maybe it's been so long since Dana was an underdog that he forgets how to be one.
Right.
Or maybe it's, so long since Dana's been inside a learning curve. He hasn't probably been inside a learning curve since I worked with him and I knew him in, 2001, 2002. That's 25 years ago. So there's a lot has happened between now and then. A lot of success has happened between now and then. And you get used to success and you forget what it's like to to scratch and crawl maybe. And I think he maybe overlooked the fact that they're going to need to scratch and crawl for probably a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're not in the position where they can watch these other promotions die trying to catch up to them. They're the one
No,
trying to
they're
catch
the
up to
one,
these other
right?
promotions.
They're the ones that might die trying to catch up. That's the thing. The roles are totally reversed. And even when the UFC was in dire straits in the early 2000s and we were underdogs and scratching and clawing, we were still the biggest promotion in at least the country and for a
Right.
lot of that time the world. So, as tough as it was back then, we were still the big dog. It was a small playground, and we weren't allowed to go to a lot of playgrounds, but we were the big dog on whatever playground we were in. So this is a totally different deal. So yeah, I don't know that they've thought through everything, and I don't know that they've thought through their messaging, or I would say that they maybe want to change their messaging or the tone of it a little bit.
Plus, the other things they're able to point out, I think, are also kind of. If I was a boxer, if I was a fighter on Zuffa card, I'd be a little bit embarrassed by it. They're like, "Look, you're fighting in front of 120 people in some
Yeah, the optics.
warehouse
Yeah, that's
somewhere. Is this
that's
really what you want for yourself?"
right. And remember,
And I'm sure
everyone.
there's calling some of these guys, if there's any they want, and saying, "Look
Yeah,
where you're at. This is where you're gonna be for a while."
yeah, and if you're a boxer coming up, young kid, training all your life, watching pay-per-views, watching sellout crowds, watching huge buy rates, watching these guys have the green belt or the red, white, and blue belt, and watching these guys make millions of dollars on pay-per-view and get endorsements and have big houses in Las Vegas. I don't know that Zuffa Boxing is going to get you there, right? So
Yeah,
the goals that have been established for every young, hungry fighter, boxer, those goals that they're thinking about, the reason they're getting up at 6 a.m. and doing the road work and training, the reason they're doing it is to get all these things they've been watching on TV and hearing about and watching Floyd and watching Canelo and watching all these guys achieve. Those things are not going to be achievable through Zuffa boxing. So
Or if they are, it's going to be many years down the road.
yeah. They're not, you're not going to go out and make 10, 15, 20 million in one night at Zuffa boxing anytime
Maybe
soon.
ever.
Maybe ever.
Yeah,
Maybe
because they
ever.
aren't known for paying that, even with the money they're making in the UFC.
That's the other thing with the talent. You wonder how the Zuffa boxing contracts are being constructed because if I establish, we're back to competition. If I establish myself as a name on Zuffa Boxing, you think Oscar isn't going to pick up the phone? You think Eddie's not going to pick up the phone and lure them away and say, "Hey, I'll put you on the next card, or I'll put you, you can headline this, and you're going to fight for the WBO belt. You've always dreamed of fighting for the WBO belt, right? I can make that happen, right? You've always dreamed of headlining a pay-per-view, making millions of dollars in one night. I can make that happen." I don't know that Zuffa can make the same promises. And that's where, we get into legacy and history. And again, we're back to a startup. Zuffa boxing has no legacy. Zuffa boxing has no history. The sport of boxing and every up and coming fighter is driven by history and legacy, right? So we've always said from the beginning, like for any startup, it's an uphill challenge. And I think in this case, they're going to have to convince the fighters. I don't know how you do this, but take less are the words that come to mind.
Yeah.
Which
Take less
doesn't,
and be willing to fight in front of 200 people for
and wear a
quite a while
uniform. Right,
and wear a
right. It's
uniform.
wear a
We're not
uniform.
going to
So
let you have a nice entrance. We're not going to
it's
let you wear anything you want.
it's easier. It's
We're
easy
not going to
to
let you have any sponsors,
huge.
you know?
It's easy to impose these rules when you're the only show in town.
Precisely.
The UFC was able to enforce a lot of what people would describe as draconian rules. They're able to do that because there's nowhere else to go. But boxing is not like that. And not only is there competition, but your competition is better established, just as well funded, just as well or better distributed. Uh, you know, it, it's a challenge from all directions and all angles, like any startup faces. And that's why I don't understand Dana's messaging and tone, really.
Yeah, and I think Oscar made a point that I agree with too about the Sunday show they had. I had no idea that was happening.
Me neither.
I
Me
might have
neither.
watched it,
Yeah.
maybe. I might have watched it, had it, but I had no clue. I found out the next day that they had some fights. So they're
What
not even doing a good job of promoting the shows.
do you know? Just curious, what Paramount is it a combo rate or is there a separate rights fee for Zuffa Boxing? Do you know? Who
I don't know.
knows? It
I
was
think
I have
UFC
a
had their own because I remember hearing Dana talk, and at least it sounded like UFC had already got theirs, and they were working on Zuffa boxing. They
oh
were working on.
I don't know about that. I bet you it was
They were
I
working on
bet
getting the power slap in. They were working on getting Zuffa boxing in. It hadn't been finished yet.
yeah, and who knows if that's true because if I had to guess, I would say that all three properties were must or you had to take all three. It was all three or nothing. That would be my guess.
And to me, power slap's already a flop. I don't see near as much. Most of their stuff was viral clips on social media. It really wasn't people watching. I don't see
No,
that as much now. I
I
don't
can
see as
tell you,
many
yeah.
people getting slapped as I used to on my feed. And I don't see it on because the UFC was putting it on their main YouTube,
Uh-huh.
their main social medias. I don't see them do that as much.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think Power Slap is basically a flop already.
I
And
mean,
Dana White
which
said some crazy stuff about. He said that it was going to be bigger than the UFC with a straight face. He said that.
I have a friend.
There is no way on earth he could have believed that. He would have had to been on the best drugs you could buy to
I have a
really believe
friend.
that.
I forget. I think this is like last summer or something. I have a good buddy who had a meeting with Dana for a separate business issue, and he was telling me how he was sitting in Dana's office and the all Dana wanted to talk about was the power slap numbers and hey Hunter, bring in the numbers. And he was like jacked for these numbers. So Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that came to mind, but yeah, power slap is nonsensical car crash kind of stuff anyway. There's nothing sporting about it.
But
It's
I think
you
it's
know,
already dying as
yeah.
far as any momentum it had, which wasn't a lot, is
Well,
gone
any show
already.
that any show that probably loses your interest after 5 minutes or 5 seconds is probably not going to be around for the long haul. And although it was an interesting novelty and curiosity and guaranteed violence, and let's see someone, move a step towards brain damage. And I don't know that I, I don't know. Could you sit through a whole show of that? Is it entertaining enough? I mean, I don't know. I don't
And
know.
Miguel was
So
saying, where are these world-renowned Russian slappers you told us we were going to
I
see?
world-renowned
You said
Russian
you were going to have,
slappers.
because that's where this kind of slap stuff started, I guess, was in
Oh, okay,
Russia.
okay. I
And
get it.
so, where are these Russian slap champions that you said we were going to see in the second event? We
They
still
want too
haven't
much
seen
money.
them. Yeah, we still haven't seen those guys.
I
It's
mean,
all
but if
people that are based in the U.S. slapping each other.
but again, if you brought them in, who the hell cares, right? I mean, I don't know. If your gig
There was a
is
viral clip of two Russians hitting each other, and the guy's face looked like a watermelon, like it was this big.
oh,
And it
jeez.
shocked people because he kept going. He
Oh
ended up
boy.
winning. But his face was like this huge. He was holding his face in between hits because his face had swollen to such a degree. And Dana's like, I'm going to bring those next show. I'm going to have those guys.
Oh man,
Nope.
he probably wanted too much money.
Yeah. And that's what Miguel was
Um,
saying. Where are these guys you said you were going to have in the second show?
I mean,
Where are all these people?
my guess is in the boardroom. They're sitting around saying, "Okay, what does he want to come?" And does it really matter? They just want to see people slapping each other, right? We can get you know, Joe Bag of Donuts and tomato can number one to do that. So I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, slap was kind of a ridiculous thing, is kind of a ridiculous thing anyway. And you're right. I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen much of it at all.
Yeah, I think it's already dead. I think it's already a failure, and you don't really hear Dana talking about it as much anymore either.
Hmm.
Yeah, I blew it on this, so I'll kind of just not talk about it. Because I don't want
Well,
people to know I blew it.
he was all fired up about it for a long period of
And De
time.
La Hoya was making fun of me. He's like, "You put your money into this project over here, and it's a flop already." You
Mm,
know, these other
mm.
ones you didn't even put your own money into, and you act like you're some big shot. You didn't put any of your money into Zuffa boxing.
Yeah, the Eddie comments. I think it was a low blow he took at Eddie Hearn, just because Dana knows that, he didn't fund anything. So I think for him to go in that direction was not fair. Like I said, I don't think name calling gets you anywhere. It just makes you look like an asshole kind of. And it amplifies your frustration. At least that's how I read it. I read that as frustration. And the other thing is that Dana is able to control the MMA world, the MMA press, all that stuff. And I'm sure he doesn't have a handle, is not able to have a handle on the boxing world in that same fashion, right? Because the
Well, it is his
competition.
press. They're asking him questions after Zuffa boxing. He's not bringing in new people.
Hmm.
It's all his hand-selected people that are going to kiss his butt.
Oh, I see. I see.
It's the same people.
Invitation only to the press conferences.
Yeah, he'll probably tell him now. Don't ask me any question about Eddie Hearn because every time you do it, he's
I
humiliating me.
I thought it was funny that that Oscar was talking about the viewership and that the combined viewership,
Yeah,
which is something that I predicted. I don't know, last time we talked or something like that, because you're never gonna want to announce the Zuffa boxing numbers alone. You just want to kind of combine them with all three properties, 5 million, 99.7% of which was UFC.
and I really don't think Eddie's taking low blows. He's giving honest analysis. He's saying, look, you're in a garage, you're fighting in front of 150 people. You know, where's the greatness in that?
Right. And that's why I think the messaging is off, or at least it's premature. And it's tough to be arrogant when you're trying to make your bones and prove yourself and gain viewership. Although maybe that's part of it, right? Maybe the Dana Bully hype machine, they figure translates into the viewerships, subscriptions. So if we can't do it in the ring, well, Dana, get out there and make some headlines. Let's do whatever we can to get the promotional side of this rolling if we can't be attracting top talent, if we can't be expanding subscription and doing viewership numbers. Let's at least be talking about it in a way that goes viral. Let's at least be talking about it in a way that elicits response from other major players because hey, we're here talking about it, right? So the boxing world is talking about his remarks. So, maybe there's a little bit of method to the madness there.
Yeah, and Eddie was also saying, look, you can tune into my show Saturday, and it'll be an arena, and it'll be packed, and you can
Yep.
look for yourself.
Yep.
After you watch
Yep.
Zuffa Boxing, you can watch my show.
Yeah, I think it's easy pickings when he
Yeah,
goes after Eddie and Oscar, just because they've been doing it. They're established. It's like
big
you're, ta
events.
you're taking shots at what you're trying to become, and that's I don't
Even
know.
Oscar, who kind of has some debts and whatnot, he has a big fight Saturday. Barrios versus Ryan Garcia. That's a big fight.
Yeah, yeah. The whole Dana's approach reeks of desperation and frustration,
Yeah,
kind of.
Barrios versus Garcia will have a big audience. You know,
Yeah.
it'll be
Well, I
in
mean,
an arena. The arena will be full.
those guys are the ones doing big time boxing,
Yeah,
right? So they have a leg up. That's the thing. I mean,
it's a different. It for us as people who have been in the MMA world as long as we have from the beginning. Seeing Dana in this position, it's a very different position to see him in.
definitely, definitely. I mean, he's trying
Yeah,
to handle it the same way, but like I said, I think it's been so long since he was an underdog, so long since he was in a startup learning curve type of situation that maybe he's forgotten that humility and honesty and maybe those things go a long way. And the public is smarter sometimes than you give them credit for. And you can't say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread when they're tuning in and they're in the apex with, 250 people. And I don't know any of these guys. And yeah, I guess it's cool, but I don't know what's special, right? They're still trying to find their special. They're still trying to find their unique. And that takes time. That takes time. Or you got to just go out and buy that. And it doesn't seem like they, at least yet, are willing to do that. Although, like I said, they seem to have the financial wherewithal to do that if they decide. But I don't think it's the plan.
I would have put him in MMA gloves from the start.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I love that idea. I love that
It would have
idea.
made the fights more exciting. It would have been something different. Yes, we're boxing, but not exactly.
Yeah.
We're
And
more
again,
a more violent form of boxing. If
so
they could
they've
have done it
done.
bare, if BKFC didn't exist, I would have had them go bare knuckle from the start. But
I
because
saw
BKFC
your.
already exists, I'll put them in because I watched those fights in ONE FC, those Muay Thai fights, where they're
Mm,
wearing MMA gloves. They're sensational fights. Plus, those
hmm
guys are super talented. They have like
hmm
guys who've won multiple championships in Thailand and the elite of the elite guys.
hmm
And the fights are incredible. I watched one last week. Um, this guy from Scotland. God, I can't remember the names of these two guys. My brain. Um, Shadow was the one from Thailand, and the guy who beat him. But it was just a sensational fight.
hmm
Incredible fight. Incredible skill shown. And when you have the small gloves on, there's that element of danger. Muay Thai is hard enough, but
hmm
when you have small gloves on where you can get popped,
hmm
most of Muay Thai you see is kicks and knees when they have
Knees,
the gloves. They
elbows.
aren't really doing a lot of. This one there was a lot of damage with the hands. Guys are getting dropped
hmm
from the punches. So
More
it just
cuts.
takes the Muay Thai fight to a whole different level, and I think it would do the same for boxing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's a
harder to
cool idea
block the punches when
for
you don't
sure.
have a giant glove on.
For
There's
sure.
more element of danger, and I guarantee you more people would have went to the water cooler or whatever at work and said, I watched the Super Boxing the other night. They're wearing tiny gloves. I've
At
never
least
seen guys
it's
box in tiny gloves like that.
yeah, it's unique, it's special, it's different. So
Yeah,
they've done 4 shows in what, 2 months? So every other week
yeah,
is
yeah,
what they're
yeah. They're
that's a
doing
tough
just like the UFC. Let's just,
man, that's hard. That's
and it
hard.
might be too much. Yeah.
It's hard to maintain talent level. It's hard to maintain excitement level. It's hard to maintain. I mean, people get tired. That's a lot to ask. Or maybe it's not. Maybe that's how they plan to build what the roster they have. But again, guys can't fight every 2 weeks. Have has anyone fought twice yet? Any
I
idea?
don't know because I haven't been watching every show,
I,
but
I wonder
that's
what the
the
recipe
one
is.
thing I think they would have a little bit of success in is they could say we could keep you busy because we're just going to have shows constantly.
Sure, we can keep you busy, but I don't
You
know,
aren't going to get
just
paid
right. I
squat.
mean, I'm fighting twice as much. I'm making half as much, and I'm getting punchy along the way. Gone are the days that we grew up with where guys fought three, four, 5 times a year. That doesn't happen anymore, although it may in this situation. I also don't know if the commissions, although are there commissions involved in Nevada State Athletic Commission has to be involved in boxing, but is there a mandatory rest period? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge and demanding show schedule. And if you've got, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights, you're talking about 10, 15, 18 guys every 2 weeks. You're gonna burn through talent fast. And I
Yeah, you'd have
again,
to have a deep roster.
huge roster if you're
Yeah.
doing 2 shows a month, a huge roster. So now you're carrying a lot of talent, which is, a recipe for disaster unless you have the return. We know they're not doing gates. Um,
I got to mention the guy that won that fight because it's a disservice if I don't mention him.
yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
really. I mean, I wonder what the financials look like for Zuffa Boxing. But is Zuffa Boxing part of TKO?
Hold on. I got to mention the guy who won that Muay Thai fight because
Sure.
I already feel bad about this.
Give him his props.
Yeah.
Muay Thai is awesome.
Nico Carrillo was his name. Yeah, Nico Carrillo. He's
Mhm,
a great Muay Thai fighter. Not Thai, but
mhm,
just sensational fight between these two guys. And I got to give ONE FC their credit, because
mhm,
those fights you don't see in the UFC anymore because those guys don't have that level of talent in one discipline. One thing
mhm.
at Chatri I got to give him credit for is and he's right about this. He said, "Yeah, the UFC is all popular and this and whatnot, but we have like our roster contains probably X amount of championships among our roster in various martial arts,
Disciplines,
jiu-jitsu,
yeah.
Muay Thai, etc., etc. We have
Mhm.
guys that are championship, especially in the Muay Thai. Um, the level of skill between these two guys was incredible.
Who
You know,
owns Zuffa Boxing? Is it part of TKO?
yeah.
It is. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
And well, Sella and
So the
like De La Hoya said,
financials,
Sella, the Saudis, Turkey
right,
Al
but
Sheikh, they're the
what
money
I'm
behind it.
right, what I'm driving at is as a publicly traded company, those financials will be available, right? We should be able to see what that division does
You
whenever
would
they
think, but
do
Zuffa's
earnings.
been good at hiding stuff. So
Yeah, I guess you can bury stuff, but it's a publicly traded company, so I think you gotta have at least an appearance of transparency or earnings and financials and stuff have to be made available to shareholders and the public. So I'd be curious to see how much money they're losing because they ain't making money. I don't think they're making any money. I don't see where they could be making it from. And again, I don't know what Paramount Plus is paying or what slice of the UFC pie rights that they're getting. But this is when you talk about all these shows, you talk about all these fighters the first thing that comes to mind is what a money pit. Holy shit. And you're not making any money off the gate. You're not probably doing any sponsorships. Um, Man, you're just going to keep pouring money in until you make yourself a star. And then how are you going to keep that star around? Because there's competition in this world,
right,
right?
exactly.
Unless you're putting handcuffs on them from the beginning, in which case, I don't know if I'm a young boxer with promise. I don't want handcuffs. I want to be able to jump around every fight, every 2, 3, 4 fights, and go to the best payday. That's what boxing's all about. So yeah, they're kind of it's very much against the grain. Um, doesn't mean it can't be done, right? Doesn't mean it can't be done, but it's either going to take time, patience, development, or huge dollars, because the talent acquisition becomes the biggest thing. How do you get people to watch? You
Even
got
if
to
you
give
got
them.
huge dollars, if I'm a big time fighter, why do I want to fight in front of 200 people? Why?
Well, it depends on what my check is to do it.
I mean, I'll do it, yeah, but do I really want to do it? Do I get the same rush that I get when I fight in front of 20,000, 30,000, 40,000?
No,
No.
but if the check is significantly bigger, right, then I'll do it.
How much
Um,
bigger would it be? It would have to be a lot bigger, in my opinion.
it'd have to be a lot bigger, and it might not just be for one fight,
Yeah,
right? I might want, okay, I'll do that. I'll help your upstart organization, and I'll put you on the map. But I want 3 fights, and I want them all at this level, and I'm gonna be able to ask for anything I want, really, because that's the thing. The first major star that Zuffa Boxing creates, I don't know how they're gonna hang on to him or
yeah.
her.
Unless they just have a draconian contract that doesn't let them. But I don't
That
think
doesn't let them in.
those guys would want to sign those contracts at that point, or they'd have
Right.
the management that was were smart enough to get them out of it, which the UFC fighters don't have.
Right.
Those
Remember a lot.
managers don't even have any intention of getting them. They have in the UFC, those managers intend to keep them in those contracts because
Right.
they're
Right.
working for the UFC.
Right. And there's no place to go. That's the other thing. It's like if I'm a young, hungry mixed martial artist, I'll do whatever I can to get in the UFC because it's the only show in town. Boxing is not the same deal, not the same gig. I'll have multiple suitors if I show promise and potential.
Yeah.
So that you don't have the stranglehold on the talent like you do in mixed martial arts, where there's really no other outlets these days. I mean, not significant.
Fascinating stuff as always. You always make these great points. As people watching this, I could do shows with James for hours, but I can't keep him up forever because he's a busy guy. Um,
Well,
but
thanks,
yeah,
man.
maybe
I
I
enjoyed
always
it.
like to let you tell people what you're doing and where they can find you because more people should
Oh, I
follow
appreciate
you.
that. And,
And
and I enjoy doing the show. And thank you for having me. And I'm always happy to come back and talk old school UFC and mixed
yeah,
martial arts current MMA current events. I always enjoy our talks. On Instagram, it's Werme James, last name, first name. And on X, it's James A. Werme, my middle initial A. But yeah, always happy to hear from other fans and people in that world, and happy to answer questions about what things were like back in the day, old school UFC. Like Todd mentioned, I was there from 95 to 2002. I did 40 shows, SEG, Zuffa, all that stuff. So a lot of good times, a lot of great fights, a lot of great memories. So always happy to share those with anyone. And thank you again for having me on.
and Puerto Rico MMA you didn't mention.
And PRMMA is still in the works, still tying up loose ends. PRMMA is a local promotion that we have a team together that we're going to be putting on here on the island in 2026. Very exciting to be bringing live mixed martial arts to the island. Right now, a live MMA promotion does not exist in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is a lot of fight fans, a lot of sports fans. So we think there's enough support to make it a viable live event. And we also have a huge pool of Olympic level athletes, whether that's boxing, judo, taekwondo, that exists here, wrestling, that exists here, and we're looking to give those athletes a next chapter so they can continue their athletic careers, and hopefully we can put on some great fights and some great shows. And as details arise, I will be sharing those with you happily. But very
And
exciting.
I think the crowd will be interesting because I grew up watching Felix Trinidad fight, and the crowds are
Yep.
pretty, whether he's fighting in Puerto Rico or New York or this place where there are a lot of Puerto Ricans, the crowd was way different. The vibe.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of fan loyalty, and people love to root on their hometown guys and girls, and that would be our goal, is to really dig into the quality athletes we have here on the island and put on a really quality, high entertainment level show. I think to be successful, it's our plan to not only put on great fights, but to put on a great party, a great evening, a great destination, whether you're with the boys or with the girls or with the dates. Just something cool to do multiple times a year. Like I said, bring live mixed martial arts here to the island, PRMMA, Puerto Rico MMA,
Yeah, I mean, when I
2026.
used to watch Felix, there'd be a lot of flags, festive
Yeah.
crowd, a lot
And
of dancing. They're really into
interesting,
it.
interesting historical tidbit. Big time MMA has not been here in Puerto Rico since 1996, which was UFC 8. the David versus Goliath tournament in February of 1996. That was my second show with the company. So for me to be a part of a team to 30 years later, bring big time MMA back to the island, that would be an honor, and that's a real exciting possibility proposition. So we're pumped, and we're putting things together, and we're looking for a 2026 launch. We'll keep you posted.
Did Don Fry win that one?
Don Fry won that.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
beat Gary Goodridge.
Right.
The super fight that night was Ken versus Chemo. I think Bolander was in that. It was a big guys. It was above 200 pounds, below 200 pounds. David versus Goliath. Campbell McLaren, great idea. And yeah, the debuts of Gary, the debut of Don, Feroza's in that. Bolander's in
Yeah,
that.
Feroza, I remember.
I think Buffer makes his first appearance in that one. So historical show here on the island, and yeah, it would be really special for me as now a resident here to be on the team that brings that back to the island. That would be really special, really cool, and we're gonna make it happen. 2026 BRMMA.
Have you met Trinidad yet?
I've never met him. I've never met him. I've run into Cotto at the airport. You see these guys around here and there, but I haven't met Felix. I've met some of the baseball players. They're around.
I'd be trying to
Um,
meet Felix if I was there.
well, Felix will be ringside at PRMMA, and so will Miguel.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Really?
get all,
Miguel?
yeah,
Oh,
we're gonna get
wow.
all. Oh, Miguel Cotto, I was talking about,
Oh,
not
I thought you were
Miguel.
talking about Miguel
Yeah,
Dorati.
I mean, Miguel
Oh,
can come
Cotto,
too.
yeah.
He's
I mean,
he's
Cotto, yeah.
not far
Again,
either.
another guy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's we
Ah,
want to make it special. We want to get the whole island behind it. We want to get all of combat sports. Like I said, and this, boxing is huge here. We have our Olympic teams in wrestling and judo and taekwondo and yeah, sports fans are everywhere here on the island and so we think it'll work and just need to make it happen.
yeah. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Me
All right.
too. And
Well,
thanks again for
James is
having
on.
me.
Again, I appreciate you coming on as always, and people make sure to check out James. Follow James. He's got a lot of wisdom that he can share on X and Instagram. When you can ask some questions on X, he'll answer.
For
And
sure.
yeah, as always, people. Until next time, appreciate the support, and until next episode, we'll see you later.
Thanks,
Take
Todd.
care.